League of Greater Madison takes another huge step forward in its education leadership role, and we'll talk about Educate to Elevate this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. Next Thursday and Friday, the Urban League of Greater Madison, along with partners United Way of Dane County, Planning for Greatness, and the Madison Metropolitan School District, and more than a dozen sponsors, are convening an education forum, followed by an Education Innovation Summit. The event features some of the leading thinkers on education excellence in the country. And of course, the goal is closing the achievement gap and ensuring success for all children in the Greater Madison region. What sets this effort apart is the partnership part. And I welcome to For the Record this morning, the Urban League of Greater Madison President and CEO Kaleem Kerr, and the President and CEO of Wood Communications Group, the convener of Planning for Greatness, Jim Wood. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here this morning. Start at the beginning here, Kaleem. Our viewers will not be familiar with an effort like this.
Right.
They're familiar with Planning for Greatness, and Jim's been on the show several times. They're familiar with Schools of Hope. They're familiar with a lot of the work that the Urban League has done, but nothing quite of this scope.
Well, you know, there's not been anything that we can think of in the history of Madison that has brought together this type of an event for the county, for the city of Madison. But we decided that after all that's happened over the last 2 years, that we needed to create some learning opportunities and some sharing opportunities for the community. And so we came together with Planning for Greatness and Wood Communications and the school district and United Way to create that. And Educate to Elevate is an event that will take place next week, separated by 2 days. First day to hear from really some very interesting people about the educational achievement gap and how it can be addressed. Also giving a little excitement, bringing a few celebrities in town for that.
We'll go through the lineup and talk about who's coming. How many people are you expecting?
Expecting about 500 at the summit, and 500 at the forum, 250 at the summit.
And who's coming? Who's this for?
This is for community members. This is for individuals who, whether they're business leaders, community members who are interested in trying to figure out how we can solve this achievement gap issue, but also manifest world-class schools in our county. Schools can't do this by themselves, so just to have a forum that would just bring together school leaders would be a little disingenuous, because this is an effort that is going to require everyone in this community to play a role.
Let's get the obvious hard question out of the way first. Does this reflect an unhappiness with the performance of the school district? Is this a reflection of the work that the Urban League has done to create the academy that everybody's familiar with, or is it different than that?
It's a little different than that. I mean, we're dedicated to ensuring that all of our children in this county are successful. And we take a more systemic approach to looking at how we serve students. We're not a community-based organization per se. We do serve the community through workforce training and education. But our effort is to help make our schools stronger and create schools that address the needs of the students that we serve now. Our student population is very different now than it was 20 years ago. All the district leaders of 16 school districts in Dane County, every last one of them would tell you that they're struggling with the transition of the new population, trying to find the best ways to serve them. And so we've come together with these partners to create what we hope will be the beginnings of an opportunity to learn how others around the country and in our own backyard are doing it.
And actually, I guess the partnership, Jim, is really as good an answer to my last question as anything. Yeah. If this was just a further conversation about Madison Prep, Planning for Greatness, United Way of Dane County, Madison Metropolitan School District probably wouldn't be partnering. Why is this a good fit for the work you've been doing?
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I want to, my hat is off to Kaleem and the Urban League for actually pulling this together and doing all the heavy lifting. I think that what is intriguing here is that so much change has occurred in this country and around the world in the last decade that everybody finds themselves a little bit out of position here in terms of what we can do with the technology, what we need to be doing, how we move forward. I don't know anybody in any school district across the United States of America who is set out to fail their children, okay? That's not. They're trying to get the job done. They're trying to help their kids move forward in this process. what we're discovering is that you have to change in order to be able to do that these days. And there are places that have found stuff that's clearly working. So the kind of conversation that Kaleem and the Urban League have helped us put together, I think, is critical, because part of what has to happen is we need to listen to the people from Cincinnati, the people from Nashville, the people from Kalamazoo, and on across the board. And quite honestly, we think there are things that they can learn from schools here in Wisconsin. And so to be able to bring everybody together around this question, this set of issues, I think is critical. Kaleem and I, we talk about achievement gap. I'm actually, I prefer the phrase, it's an achievement, it's an opportunity gap. And that's really where we need to be going. The pressure is very, very strong at this point in time. The most recent analysis says that by 2020, we'll have 6 million new young people in this country without a high school degree who will be unemployable given the way the workforce is going. We can't afford that as a country, and we certainly can't afford it as a community. So this is hats off here at Kaleem.
Just in terms of strategy that we're likely to hear next week, I expect a lot of it is going to mirror things that you've discovered in the last couple of years working on planning for greatness, don't you think?
Well, I think so. I think the way the program is set up, we have an actual opportunity to talk. We're focused on collective impact. And so what's happened around the country in the last 5 to 8 years, 10 years maybe in some places, is two major streams of thought. One is that the challenges that the schools are facing are not just school challenges, they are community challenges. And this premise really started in a lot of places, but Cincinnati, Ohio, with the Strive exercise, is a place where they said, let's see if we can't reorganize how we approach this. Let's see if we can't build focused partnerships and networks on specific kinds of issues. There is now a national Strive network out there, and Terry O'Brien, who's one of the hands-on leaders in this effort from Strive, will be at our breakout section on collective impact. The other topic area that these things have gathered around is what's called deeper learning. And everybody's got these phrases, and I apologize for that. But the premise is that education has to be very student-focused. It has to be very real-world focused, project-focused, has to be achievement-based kind of stuff. And again, there's some pretty amazing things coming down the pike, and so we'll be talking about that. And then Kaleem, again, has an all-star cast coming in to talk about stuff.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned Cincinnati. Just before the show, we were talking about a recent survey I saw on CNN Money about the 6 leading cities for innovation in the United States. Omaha being one, which you're very familiar with. Cincinnati was one of the other ones. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a city with a reputation for educational innovation would be seen as a city for innovation. And isn't that what we're after here?
That's what we want to create. That's what we have to create. That's what we can create right here. But we have to take advantage to learn from each other, learn from others outside of, the world that we work in here, and take best practices and try to model them and make them better. And that's what innovation is all about. And so we've decided to apply that thinking to education, to take that on as a team of partners, and we hope that a lot of people will come out and join us. And then again, this will just be the beginning of our education, but we hope that people will be excited about it.
When we come back, we're going to talk about John Legend and Jeffrey Canada and others right after this. Next Thursday and Friday at the Alliant Energy Center, there's a 2-day forum and summit. It's called Educate to Elevate. The Education Forum is on Thursday, and on Friday there's an Education Innovation Summit. And it says Monona Terrace, but it's at the Alliant Energy Center, right?
First day is at Alliant Energy Center.
Second day is at Monona Terrace.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And there's registration information. There are still seats available if you are interested. My guest this morning, 2 of the 4 partners in the event, Kaleem Kerr, who's the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison, and Jim Wood, who is the president and CEO of Wood Communications Group and the convener of planning for greatness. So for a summit like this, you get Gloria Ladson-Billings and you get Dr. Howard Fuller, and they're considered superstars in the education world around here. But then you go and get Jeffrey Canada and John Legend.
Right.
Talk about their involvement.
Okay, so when I was in D.C., my chairman, who I had there, Joe Robert, I led the charitable side of the company, Fight for Children. He had a belief that people need to be excited about change, otherwise they're not going to. And so we did very big events. We brought, much bigger than this, we brought in celebrities, but people that were consistent with the mission. And we used it as an anchor to bring people together. So with this, we decided that we wanted to try to do something similar, bring out a variety of people to this, because we have to engage a broad community, but people who would want to hear from a John Legend, a 9-time Grammy winner, who people don't know, he graduated from high school at 16. He was a salutatorian of his high school class, went to University of Penn, got his degree, and I think he was a consultant, a management consultant with Baird before he hit it big. But that's a story that we want to hear about, and his focus through his Show Me campaign on education and education reform is very deep. And then Jeffrey Canada, everyone knows, who's paid attention to community change, community reform. What he's done with that 110 square block radius and transforming Harlem through the Harlem Children's Zone project is phenomenal. So we wanted to bring people that we can learn from, that are on the cutting edge. We have other schools coming that are going to be very interesting for people to hear about. There's Urban Prep, which has sent 3 classes, 100% of their students, young men in Inglewood and Chicago, very poor, violent community, to college. Milwaukee College Prep out of Milwaukee will be there. They're one of our shining stars, according to our state superintendent, Tony Evers, and Bruce Guadalupe School. Bruce Guadalupe is mostly Latino. Milwaukee College Prep is mostly African American, and they're among the top performing schools in our state. We have another one will be interesting, Steve Barr, the founder of Green Dot Schools in Los Angeles. He's now moved on to found Future Is Now Schools, where he is literally partnering. He's using charter school laws to partner with the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, to form union-led public schools. So we have people like that, but each of them, the price of admission was they've had to close the achievement gap.
Kaleem, there are people in this community who will point to every one of those examples and say they do not work.
Those schools work.
Well, I mean, and this is an opportunity. I mean, I assume they're going to come here and say they work and have statistics that they work, and yet there are still people who say there is not an example of a, and using Madison Prep, you know, there's not an example in the country that's successful.
There's classrooms in Madison, Wisconsin that are successful. My daughter and son go to Leopold. Some families have retreated from Leopold. Had a challenging year last year. This year, I think they've made a lot of progress, and hats off to their principal, their teachers, and the school district for it. My children are having a good time in their my English, Spanish immersion class for my son who's in kindergarten. And I would
what you would consider innovative education.
I would pick my children's teachers and put them on stage and have them tell people what they're doing. Yeah. And so we literally have an opportunity like that that's going to play out through the rest of the year, called Classroom Innovation Series, which we're going to start in February, where we're going to showcase local innovations, whether it be in Madison, Verona. We want to find those teachers that are getting it done with our kids and help them and educate and share with their peers about what they're doing to get results.
Well, I'm going to jump on that word excited, because you just got me excited. The reality is that there are schools that are working, okay? Part of what happens to you when you're in the midst of serious, necessary change is you innovate, okay? And the measuring mechanisms that we have in place, we're set there to measure something else, okay? Ken Robinson does this great piece about, you know, our schools were started during the Industrial Revolution, and so we organized around what he calls date of manufacture, in terms of when you were born, and that puts you in 6th grade or 7th grade or what have you. Well, that's not the way we need to be moving any longer, apparently. How we measure these schools these days is, I think, different, but there needs to be different. So I think that's part of the problem. But the dialogue has got to be amongst people who are looking for things that work, okay? I'm prepared to sit in a room with people who say to me, well, that doesn't work on X level. And I'll say, fine, how do we make it work on that level? But we have to move forward. We do not have the luxury of saying, because I can measure this and I can get X kind of test degree on it, it works, okay? It's not that simple. The new Common Core standards that are being adopted in Wisconsin as a part of that adoption. I think we're one of 37 states or 38 states at the moment. That's an important step forward. The use of new testing procedures is an important step forward. The concept that teachers have a personal responsibility not to their class but to every single student, and that they have a responsibility to each other to become a team focused on the success of those children. You can say that that's what we all thought we were doing or wanted to do. There are apparently better ways to do that. There are new ways. People are trying new things. We have to be open to that.
Common Core is going to be gone in 2 years, right? It's going to be replaced by a new testing system that we're going to have to adapt to again.
Yes.
I mean, and what better example do we need of the need for innovation? We're going to come back. We're going to talk about business involvement in this summit and citizen involvement right after this.
Okay.
My guest this morning, Colleen Kerr, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison, and Jim Wood, President and CEO of Wood Communications Group, the convener of Planning for Greatness, and they're two of the four partners, along with the Madison Metropolitan School District and the United Way of Dane County, in Educate to Elevate, a two-day summit on education innovation this coming Thursday and Friday. In addition to the four partners, Jim, as I said, there's more than a dozen sponsors. Including Unity Health and UW and MG&E, Findorf. I mean, big companies. The business involvement in this is pretty important, isn't it?
Well, Competitive Wisconsin, as you know, has just gone through another one of its Be Bold exercises and issued a report that they did in partnership with the Manpower Group, internationally leading workforce operation. And it is just clear, not just here in Wisconsin, but across the country, that the business community knows they have got to get an educational system that will provide the workforce they're going to need over the next 25 to 30 years. Their workforce needs are very, very different. That means that the nature of the educational process has to be very, very different, quite honestly. It is pretty clear, I think, as we go forward, that there will be an emphasis on innovation, the capacity to do critical thinking, the ability to do teamwork. We're looking for more of that right brain kind of capacity. And so I think the business community is very, very focused on trying to understand how they can be helpful. That is certainly true in this area. I mean, the companies that you just mentioned there, people like Lon Sprecher and Gary Walter, who have been on this issue from day one, certainly understand the importance of education in our community. So I think the hope on the part of the business community, I think, is that they're looking for meaningful relationships. They want a more regular communication so that they can figure out what we can do to help, whether it's Urban League activity or United Way activity or school district activity.
Yeah. I want to talk about how we would define successful results from this summit. Mm-hmm. Do you have an idea in your head, Kaleem? And is your idea the same as Jim's and Leslie's and the school board and the new superintendent?
Yes and no. Yeah. Some of it's just there have to be many ideas that come out of this, but. And when you talk about innovation, that's what happens. But at the end of the summit, the program on the Friday the 7th, there'll be a call to action period where we're going to have round tables, and people at those round tables who are stewarding discussion. And what we want people to do is to walk away from there and say, here's what I've learned that's new learning for me, and here's what I'm going to do with it to help create change for our children in our community, or help build on something that already exists. We want people, individuals, to go away with that and to make a commitment to our children, more than the commitment they might have already. So for us, that's a tangible outcome. But then second, hopefully take ideas back and say, wow, how can we partner with those who've come? Or what kind of things can we do right here within our own schools to create the kind of things that we see other people are doing that are getting results? So we think that those two things will be great results coming out of an event like this.
Does this fundamentally change, Jim, the conversation that's been going on for a long time now? All four of these groups have been working on education, but the fact that you're doing this together. Does that change things moving forward?
Well, I think so. I mean, we certainly hope so. And again, as I said at the front end, and I think Kaleem has confirmed, I mean, this is about, we don't have time for each of us to invent this in our own little anthill.
That's right.
We need to pay attention, and the technology allows us to interact very differently these days. So there's a lot of innovation and a lot of experimentation going on around the country. We desperately need these interactive conversations where we, and you know, somebody's going to come in and say, and not like something that they heard, okay? Fine, okay? But now we're focused. We're talking about how we're going to move forward, how we might move forward together differently, okay? And so I wouldn't call it the beginning of the conversation, but the maturing of the conversation gets us a little closer to an actual pragmatic set of activity lines that I think are going to be critically important. The other thing I think, quite honestly, it does is it lets the people in Cincinnati know that something's going on in Wisconsin and in Madison. And so,
there's still room, Kaleem?
Absolutely.
Are there people who aren't there that need to be there?
People who care about education, care about our children, they should be at this event. Business leaders and individuals and community leaders who want to understand how have other communities succeeded in doing this, how have other schools succeeded in doing this, and then also we have the Restorative Justice Project that'll follow it, the early learning programs that Play and Learn and Parent Home Child Program in the county, that's for the United Way, and then Dane County have been supporting at Leopold Elementary. They'll be there. People need to know what's going on so they can help support what's happening, but then also look to how we can manifest other things in the community. But there are good things going on in Madison. I like what Operation Fresh Start's doing to get young people diplomas.
Sure.
They should be applauded for their efforts, and people should be supporting them. The Boys and Girls Club's efforts to try to now grow into supporting more young people in schools.
Sure.
I know they're in a couple of schools in Verona, really taking an aggressive approach to closing the achievement gap with those kids. When we say close the gap, what we really mean is lifting kids above that bar so that they are eligible to go to college or to go on and take other type of higher level, higher order thinking courses and higher education at MATC, Madison College, and get into a career afterwards.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for doing this. And we'll be back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Kaleem Kerr and Jim Wood for being here. Next week, Madison, Vietnam vet and author Doug Bradley will join us. We'll see you then.